Our society is full of crisis, and there is a pressing need for compassionate and change ambassadors that will urgently trigger a positive transformation. A very warm welcome to Hude, the flagship program of the Hude Network, where we'll be analyzing and discussing contemporary issues within the humanitarian and development space. My name is Blessing Dagin. I will be your host, and hosting the show today with me will be Jennifer Egenti. Hello, Jennifer.
Hi, Blessing. How you doing?
I'm fine. It's a very big pleasure to be doing this with you.
Pleasure is always mine.
Well, I hope at the end of the day we're able to foster a positive change in the society.
So do I. Well, hello, viewers. Consider Hidawa a platform where we connect communities with inspiring actions that will trigger a change in the world we live in. As you know, knowing about problems is not enough. Preferring sustainable and actionable solutions is more important.
Well, to begin Hude today, we'll be bringing you stories around the world about the current state of out-of-school children, including Rwanda launched Zero Out-of-School Children Initiative. Nigeria among countries with high number of out-of-school children. UNICEF warns of education crisis in Latin America as over 8 million children out of school. Details in a moment. Article 28 of the Child Rights Act states that every child has the right to education. Primary education should be compulsory and free, while different forms of secondary education should be available to every child. Article 29 further states that education should help develop every child's personality, talent, as well as their mental and physical abilities to the full. It should develop children's respect for their rights and those of others, for their parents, for their own culture, the cultures of others, and for the natural environment at large. Reducing the number of out-of-school children is a key priority for countries across sub-Saharan Africa, Nigeria inclusive. This is because, according to the UNESCO Institute of Statistics, more than half of children globally who have not enrolled in school live in sub-Saharan Africa, and more than 85% of children in sub-Saharan Africa are not learning the minimum.
The latest figures released by the United Nations Education, Science and Cultural Organization, UNESCO, reveal that 250 million children around the world are missing out on any schooling. This is an increase of 6 million from records. This alarming result is in contradiction to the United Nations goals for education, and UNESCO's Director General, Audrey Azoulay, has declared it a state of emergency. The increase in the number of children not attending school is due to factors including early child marriage, economic barriers, conflict, sociocultural norms, and lack of inclusive policies and practices in schools. Furthermore, the stagnation of education provision worldwide has contributed to this outcome.
Well, after the break, we'll delve into how Nigeria and other African countries address the issue of out-of-school children and how they find lasting solutions to these menaces. Please stay tuned. Good to have you back. And now to begin our stories. West and Central Africa are among the regions with the highest number of out-of-school children, with Nigeria topping the charts. According to the World Bank, out-of-school children in Nigeria are prevalent in both rural and urban settings, but rural areas and isolated or deprived areas in general consistently show higher numbers of out-of-school children. These children are spread across the country in varying proportions. The issues of concern to the federal government of Nigeria as strategies are targeted at bringing children back to school. But despite these strategies, the number of out-of-school children remains significantly high. UNESCO's Institute for Statistics says Nigeria is home to the highest number of out-of-school children in the world, with over 10.5 million children lacking access to education. Poverty is said to be a significant barrier to education in Nigeria, particularly for children from impoverished families with illiterate parents. This issue is compounded by other challenges such as gender discrimination, a lack of access to education in native languages, and areas affected by crisis. Well, we are talking about out-of-school children today, and it goes without saying that the issue of out-of-school children is a very, very big problem generally in the world. But then, it seems to be more severe in sub-Saharan Africa and most especially Nigeria, with over 10.5 million children out of school. These numbers are glaring and heavy to the eyes. What is going on?
Well, in sub-Saharan Africa, we're a developing continent, and we keep having different issues. And looking at the fact that Nigeria is topping the charts in terms of out of school children, they highlighted a lot of issues that would affect the reasons why children are not in school.
Yeah.
And I'm looking at the fact that they said some strategies have been implemented, but yet it means that
Problems still persist.
it means that the strategies are not they're not useful, like they're not working. And I'm looking at out of school children, we mentioned poverty, because the strategy that has been implemented includes maybe free education, because there was a time they did free primary education. I think it's still running to now.
Yes.
But you cannot give a child free education or tell a parent that I'm giving your child free primary education when they don't have food to eat, when there's a poverty going on, unemployment, gender discrimination. There are a lot of things that needs to be tackled so that children can go back to school and stay in school. Because the statistics that we've seen now, 61% just went to primary school and then they stopped. Because out of school children does not mean you did not just go to school. Some of them went and dropped out. So there are reasons why these things are happening, and we need to tackle them.
Well, like I always say, if you have challenges, it is important you sit on the table and say, okay, these are my challenges. And to, help solve these challenges, I need to take these problems on heads on.
Yeah.
Giving every solution to a particular problem. Now, Nigeria suffers greatly from a lot of things. In the world, we are topping. We have 10.5 million children out of school, the highest in the world generally. And then poverty, like you said, is a major barrier. However, one very important thing we should talk about is crisis, areas affected by crisis.
Yeah.
A lot goes on in Nigeria. Nigeria suffers from a whole lot of insecurity problems, and that is one of the major reasons why children are out of school. But before we go deep, let's take a look at the statistics. We have 1 in 5 of the world's out-of-school children being in Nigeria. Yeah, we've said that. And then we have about 10.5 million of the country's children aged 5 to 14 not in school. Only 61% of 6 to 11-year-olds regularly attend primary school. Mark the word regularly.
Yeah.
And then only 35.6% of children aged 36 to 59 months receive early childhood education. That should be around 3 to 4, 5 years thereabouts. Now, these ones from the very beginning are not being kept in school.
Yeah.
However, there are some who are in school, but then do not stay in school because of insecurity.
Yeah.
This is a pressing issue in Nigeria. I mean, years ago, we had stories of hundreds of girls, over 200 girls being taken away from their school. And then just most recently, we had another incident of 287 children being taken out of their school in Kaduna, including their teachers. Now tell me, will these children really want to go back to school?
They don't feel safe. Their parents know that them going back to school will not make them feel safe.
And to make the matters worse,
Yeah.
they are living in rural areas. Their parents are probably illiterate and they do not have enough, resources to probably take them to better schools elsewhere where there's security and all of that.
Yeah.
So if you ask me, I feel like this problem has a root and it needs to be tackled.
It does.
The government has to tackle the issues from the very particular root to ensure that we have a better, safer, and good environment for children to thrive. And then another basic issue, we highlighted was the fact that there is no education in native languages because, well, I hate to say, but a lot of children in Nigeria, are in the rural areas.
Yeah.
And in fact, most people in Nigeria, if you ask me, are living in the rural areas. And then some of them do not necessarily understand English, right? But then they are being taught in English. The teachers are managing to teach them in English. Assimilation will be very low.
Yeah.
So it is very important, I think, those issues be addressed.
I think we also need to take into cognizance that they say charity begins at home. But then these children, the rate at which these children are dropping out of school or not going to school, this is their formative years and they're not in school. I think there was a time that one of my aunts was telling me that children learn, languages faster when they're like kids because it's part of their brain that is open. And as time goes on, they can't, learn the language or something. And these children being outside school, not regularly attending school, it shapes them. Some of them do not see the value of education anymore. So the government really needs to work really hard, in targeting these problems, the issues that are keeping them out of school, to make sure that they are able to go back to school safe. You mentioned insecurity. In 2021, we had 618 schools shut down. Even if the parents agree for their children to go to school, will the teachers agree? Mm-hmm. Everybody wants to stay alive. And you cannot tell me that, I should go to school when I'm not even sure that I will live to come back.
Exactly. Or when I'm hungry. So that's why all of these issues are intertwined, if you ask me.
Yeah.
But well, I hope we're able to provide solutions before the end of today.
Yeah. And now we move on to the next news story where the UNICEF has been making significant progress in helping the school aged children of northern Nigeria overcome the challenges they face. The United Nations Children's Fund has been working tirelessly to better these children's lives and improve their access to education. Through their efforts, they have been able to turn the corners and pave the way for a brighter future for these young students. Our correspondent Precious Jacob highlights some of these efforts.
The Northeast is the least performing region when it comes to foundational skills. This situation has been exacerbated by an inequitable and poorly performing education system in the region before the insurgency, with large cohorts of children and youths out of school. To bridge the access to quality learning opportunities, UNICEF and the Federal Ministry of Education launched the Nigeria Learning Passport (NLP) last year. NLP is an online, mobile, and offline digital learning platform powered by Microsoft that enables continuous access to 15,000 curriculum-aligned learning and training materials in local languages for learners, teachers, and parents. Sadhna Pandey, the UNICEF Chief of Education, has stated that the agency is introducing models to improve reading and numeracy skills in Nigeria's northern region. One of those models is the Kanuri Arithmetic and Reading Initiative, KARI, for pupils in grades 1 to 3. KARI uses a structured pedagogy approach to train teachers on the science of reading. The combination of KARI and teaching at the right level, TARL, is effective in sorting out foundational literacy and numeracy, which are critical for a child's success in other subjects. In the Northwest, where Kanuri and Hausa are commonly spoken languages, UNICEF uses TARL and KARI, producing strong evidence of the Girls' Education Project program. This program brought 1.5 million girls back to school and achieved gender parity in the 6 Northwest states. There was a marked improvement in English language, Hausa, and mathematics learning levels. Precious Jacob reporting.
Well, what a wonderful report, from Precious,
Yeah.
highlighting, the efforts that the government is making. When you were speaking earlier, you talked about language barrier,
Yes.
and now seeing them implement something like this, the Kanuri arithmetic learning, and then even the teaching at the right level. And one thing I like about this is most of these children, they go to school. You mentioned like their teachers are like trying to teach them in English, so they don't understand what's going on. And outside your home, your school is meant to make you feel welcome. Imagine going to a place where they are speaking something you don't understand. Now, with the implementation of this, a lot of children will feel comfortable going to school because they know that whatever they say, they are being heard, and whatever is being spoken to them, they can hear it too.
I particularly was putting on a very wide smile while this report was going on, because it is important that initiatives are being implemented for the right reasons.
Yeah.
I mean, teaching at the right level, that is for the teachers that will be teaching these children, and the Kanuri arithmetic reading initiative is a good thing. That's for children in northern Nigeria who speak Kanuri. So, UNICEF, that's a really great one with from UNICEF.
Yeah.
Children learning their local languages is definitely going to help them, because, like you said earlier, it's their formative years. If they're able to understand it from the very beginning of, of their lives, if they grow up, they could, just translate it to English when they eventually learn the language. But then it is more important to ensure that you pass knowledge in the right way. Because what is communication if you're communicating and then the recipient is not receiving, the message properly? You remember communication.
Yeah,
so it's important that teaching is done the right way, and then the teachers are also trained to teach at the right level.
Yeah.
That is, of course, teaching children of their own standard or level as well. So I think it's a very good one.
Yeah, the teaching at the right level. When I was like looking at it, I was really impressed at what it offers, because most of these teachers, like, I'm not even going to lie, most of them, they can teach, but majority of them can't educate. And it's like this teaching at the right level focuses on this teacher. It helps them to have patience, because one thing you need to understand is every child has different learning capacity or capability, and it's like most of them just feel once I have taught something, everybody should assimilate it. Or no, they teach them to be patient, to implement different learning structures for these children and group them, not according to, maybe they'll say, yeah, A is for those that are intelligent, F is for those that are... No, it's just based on how you're able to assimilate this particular thing. And I think it's a really good thing that the government is really doing. And hopefully they implement it in other states, because
Exactly, and
other states,
I'm
really need that.
particularly interested in the fact that it was implemented in the northern states of Yobe, is it Yobe and Adamawa and
Yeah.
one other state. But then, if you look at those areas, if you look at what happened there, you see that a lot of schools were shut down. I initially mentioned that some children were abducted from their school
Yeah.
some years back. That was in Borno, right? And then also in this same north eastern part of the country, you have 2.8 million children needing education because that place is an emergency area. A lot of things keep happening. Then you have 496 classrooms have been destroyed and 1,392 classrooms have been damaged but repairable. So that is another issue, infrastructure. It definitely affects children being in school. So it's really nice that this initiative is targeting Yobe, Adamawa and Borno states. Hopefully, education will get better in that part of Nigeria. But well, now it's time for a very short break. When we come back, the stories continue. Please stay with us. Thank you for staying tuned. And now we move on with our stories, where elsewhere in Eastern Africa, Rwanda has launched the Zero Out of School Children initiative to further the fight against the increasing rate of out of school children in the continent. The Honorable Claudette Irere, Rwanda's Minister of State for Education, has launched a 5-year project in partnership with Education Above All Foundation and Save the Children International Rwanda. These initiatives aim to reintegrate dropouts back into school and ensure quality primary education for every out-of-school child in Rwanda. The project is part of the EAA Foundation's Zero Out-of-School Children approach and will enroll around 177,000 children. Save the Children Rwanda will be responsible for identifying and enrolling out-of-school children, monitoring their attendance, providing assistance for enrollment and retention, and offering remedial classes and emotional support. Rwanda has over the years been lauded for its impressive efforts towards keeping the number of out-of-school children in the country at the barest minimum. According to an article published on the UNESCO website, Rwanda is one of the few African countries that have developed sustainable initiatives aimed at keeping children in school. There is no miscalculation in this information.
Yeah.
You know why? Because Rwanda has proved beyond reasonable doubt that it is working heads on to ensure that that country is working. I mean, looking at their education, it is quite impressive for an African country. African continent that is always known to be, I mean, we're just talking of Nigeria just now, and then a lot of bad things to say. But then, honestly, Rwanda is one of the African countries topping, especially when it comes to education. Rwanda, Kenya, but then Rwanda is doing a whole lot. But then this initiative, the Zero Out of School Children initiative targeted at primary school children in Rwanda, it is not only interested in putting children in school, because you mentioned earlier, it is not just about going to school.
Yeah.
It's about staying in school. Now, this particular initiative aims to reintegrate dropouts into school.
Yeah.
So if you ask me, this is a great one.
Rwanda, like you said, has made a lot of headways in terms of education, in terms of, sanitation too. And it's really nice because, coming for a country that claims to be the giant of Africa, they really need to look at what Rwanda is doing.
Okay.
And we see that what Rwanda is doing, I think they're emphasizing the fact that no man's an island.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that the government should not do something, but if you know that it is it's already beyond your power to do this, you work with other organizations. Now they collaborated with non-governmental organizations. It shows that they are really ready to work in getting the children back to school. And we can see the progress they have made. 98%, or I think 92% are, in school.
Yes.
And it's like other countries too that are below this need to look at what they are doing, try and do data, get interventions and practice, like implement it into your strategies to make sure that, children are back into school. Look at one of the top performing countries educationally in sub-Saharan Africa being Rwanda. Then we have 98% of children are enrolled in primary school. 9 out of 10 children attend school, but many leave school too early. Only 12.2% of children out of school as of 2022. And that's as of 2022.
Rwanda, like I said, I don't know, I always sing Rwanda's praises because, look at it, 98% of their children are enrolled in primary school. So they have a check when it comes to that. Now, that initiative aims to reintegrate those ones who have dropped out into school, back into school. Just maybe they just complete the remaining 2% and then, make it 100%, but then it's really impressive. You were talking and then, talking about the fact that they are collaborating with non-governmental organizations. Yeah, it's a good thing. But let's look at this issue. There are lots of non-governmental organizations who have, signified interest, who have, partnered with Nigeria to make a lot of things better. I mean, look at the last initiative, the KARI and the TARL. I mean, it is from UNICEF, But then if you ask me, the major issue for me would be lack of priorities. Because
and accountability too.
Exactly, because
there should be an accountability.
A lot of funds are being, given to Nigeria, for example, for education. A lot of initiatives are being spearheaded by these non-governmental organizations. Talk of the World Bank, talk of the UNICEF, talk of UNESCO, a lot of things going on. But then what is there to show for it?
Yeah.
What is there to show for it? Year in, year out, to keep hearing, oh yeah, UNESCO has implemented an initiative to help children stay in school in Nigeria. World Bank has reimbursed Nigeria with, millions of dollars to help. But then what is the result at the end of the day?
Yeah.
We need a way forward.
Yeah, we actually do, because, this problem is something that is not just affecting Nigeria, it's not just affecting, it actually happens around the world. And we really need to look at what other countries are doing. We really need to, make sure that whatever money we get as regarding this, like, first of all, making it a priority, we need to make sure that the government too is held accountable for whatever they receive towards education, because education should not just be a luxury for a lot of people. It should actually be the right of
It is a right.
Yeah.
It shouldn't be. It is actually a right. So we need to declare education in the world, in worlds that are not really doing well when it comes to education, a state of emergency. We need to declare it a state of emergency, because we need to put children back to school.
Yeah.
Children are the future. If they are not in school, how do we move on? Where is the future of the world if most of the world's children are not in school? And for Nigeria, that has the highest number, more needs to be done.
Well, for our last news story, according to the United Nations International Children's Fund, Latin America is home to more than 8 million out-of-school children, with the COVID-19 pandemic exacerbating the situation. The report revealed that the region has seen a significant increase in the number of children who have dropped out of school or have not been able to enroll due to economic hardship and school closures. The highest number of out-of-school children was found in Bolivia, followed by Brazil, Colombia, and Mexico. The report noted that poverty, inequality, and violence were among the main factors contributing to the high number of out-of-school children in the region. In addition, the pandemic has further widened the gap, with children from low-income families being the most affected. The report further states that the pandemic has forced many schools in the region to close, increasing the number of children who have not been able to access education. UNICEF has called for urgent action to address this issue and ensure that every child has access to quality education. The organization has urged governments to prioritize education and invest in measures to ensure that children can continue their studies. UNICEF has also stressed the importance of addressing the root causes of the problem, such as poverty, inequality, and violence, to ensure that every child can receive a quality education. The same thing we've been saying all through. Now we know that this problem doesn't just affect Africa, even though in Africa we have the highest number.
Nigeria has 10.5
million, but now we see that it's a general problem. And if we are going to actually achieve the sustainable development goal for that says that every child has, should have access to quality education, we all need to work hard. Looking at Latin America, we see that their problem, was they had their issues, but then due to the COVID-19, it got worse. The problems they face, we talk about poverty, talk about violence, gender discrimination. And we know that, Latin America has like this problem, like they face a lot of violent situations. In Nigeria, we call our own insecurity, but to them, we are seeing guns, like they're blazing guns there.
Honestly, yeah, every region has its particular or peculiar issue, if you ask me. Yes, they face a lot of insecurity in that part of the world. Latin America is not a country. We must not forget that. It's just a combination of, countries that make up that region, including Mexico and some Caribbean countries.
Yeah.
So, it's important that their own issue shows that it started or got aggravated after the COVID-19 pandemic.
Yeah.
So that being said, I am expecting that they take that into cognizance and ensure that they reintegrate their children back into school. Yeah. But then talking about insecurity in that region, theirs is somewhat a different ball game entirely, just like you've stated. We're suffering from bandits here. We're suffering from unknown gunmen in this part of the world, you know. But then theirs has to do with, you know, violence. It's their thing. You know, so it's important that children are not left to follow suit. It's important that children are not left to just grow up into such status quo. It is important that children are being taught the importance of staying in school. Because if a child is not in school, trust me, if he sees a gun, it will look like the next best thing.
Yeah.
Education would help heal the world in so many ways. And I'm hoping that indeed we take this issue of out-of-school children very important and ensure that every child gets access to education, because it is not a luxury, it is a right. But then it's a very good thing because we'll have someone join us to further this conversation when we come back from this very short break. Please stay with us.
The first season of Timeline is on. The journey so far has been amazing and impactful. The world needs change agents. The world needs me, you, and all of us. Join me on Timeline as we continue to share important information and discuss social issues that would help someone out there. Let's continue to advocate for critical changes on issues affecting our world today. And together, amplify messages that prefer answers to burning questions. Our journey continues as we create awareness and promote shifts in health matters and other social issues that will alleviate personal and communal struggles, guided by international laws and best practices. Join me on Timeline exactly 7 p.m. every Friday on Hude Network's YouTube channel. Subscribe, like, and turn on the notification button. You can become an agent of positive change by dropping your comments in any of our episodes as a contributor or as a professional. Join the conversation respectfully.
Many thanks for staying tuned to Hude R. And now we're being joined by Jennifer Kizito, who is a lady who has worked in the humanitarian and development industry for quite some time and has adequate knowledge in psychology. She'll be joining us to discuss the issue of out-of-school children today. A very big welcome to you, Jennifer. It's a pleasure to have you join us.
Thank you for joining us. Thank you very much, Blessed and Jennifer.
All right, so let's go straight into the issue of the day, out-of-school children. It's a very, very alarming issue because you find quite a big number of children out of school. And it's funny, or should I say coincidental, that our country has the highest number of children out of school. Let me get your thoughts on that.
To actually hear that your own country leads the charts is quite a sad thing, actually. Well, but that's where we found ourselves, and it also points to the fact that we're not doing something right in Nigeria. And it hurts to know that there are people who don't actually go to school every day due to some certain reasons beyond their control. And I'm hoping that at the end of this, and they will come to a point where they can offer solutions to Nigeria and the world generally, so that children can find ways to get back to school as soon as possible.
Yeah. Well, okay, so let's come back home. We're talking about Nigeria. Some of the issues given as the reason for having very high number of out of school in Nigeria has to do with insecurity. Yeah. And I don't know, but these issues have been occurring and reoccurring over and over again. Some years ago, we had stories of girls, hundreds of them being taken out of their school. Well, that's the Chibok girls. Not all of them are still back. Some of them are back here, but not all of them are still back. Now, just recently, we have stories of another set of children taken from their school. Over 200 and something, 287, particularly in Kaduna, in Kuriga. So, it makes me wonder, how does this affect children's willingness to stay in school? After seeing that, oh, we're in school and we're not safe, how does it affect them?
Listen, I've read the news recently and then I followed the trend of the kidnappings happening. And it's all, but thinking there's actually something wrong, which we've been trying to point out from the beginning. And imagine being a student and you're going to school and the courts knowing that you might come back home.
Yeah.
I'll prefer to stay at home actually.
Sure.
So we're talking about out of school children. With this case, we're not just talking about the poverty. We're not talking about hunger. We're not talking about funds here. We're talking about the fact that you are not certain if you're going to be coming back from school after getting there. So there is a whole lot of anxiety, paranoia. We're not even talking about those that have been kidnapped. Many of them are not back. I'm not sure if we've had any positive feedback as to how many are back yet. So imagine having one of my friends that was kidnapped sometime in school. Will I want to go back to school? These are all issues that pile up as the years goes by, and things are not changing. And if things are not changing, it doesn't give people the confidence to go back to school. It doesn't give children the confidence. It doesn't give parents the confidence to go back to school. And we're talking about the students, and we're talking about the parents. We can't even talk about, we've not mentioned the teachers involved. When you know that your students are not going to be coming back or they are not going to be coming to class, would you have the willingness to actually go back to teach? You might actually be the one, because I think there was a time when teachers were kidnapped alongside students also.
Yeah, just recently.
Exactly. So if I'm not safe, how will I teach? So I think this causes all sorts of psychological illnesses, anxiety, like I mentioned earlier. If you're always anxious while going to school, while you're coming back, it might be while you're in school, it can be when you're coming back, it can be while you're on your way to school. So how am I supposed to be confident about the nation, about the society? How do I hand over my children to the government, to the system? If I'm not confident about them, if I can't trust them, then I can't hand over my children to them. So this increases the rate of children who stay out of school.
Okay. So now we've been talking about, out of school children, and for those that are still, in school, the issues they face. Now, how about those that don't have access to education? How would this affect, the vulnerabilities they face? Because, it's not like when they are not in school, they are doing something probably productive, or even if they are, but still they should be in school. So how can absence of education contribute to these vulnerabilities?
Well, if, just like I said, if others are doing well in school, and I think one of the reasons why students don't go to school or stay out of school will be child labor. If I'm working on the streets and other people are in school at that same period of time, it does something to your psyche. It does something to your self-esteem. You are just always low. You always feel like there's something missing because this is your childhood. Something should be developing at this stage. There are some things, if they are not built within a certain time frame, it will be harder to be built later in the future. So these are the formative years of these kids. These are the formative years of these children. If something is missing somewhere, it might be very hard to deal with it later. So, example, these formative years are time when you build self-esteem, you build a child's confidence, you build character. So if they're staying out of school while their mates are in school, obviously they'll feel vulnerable. They'll feel, we're not even talking about the fact that many of them might be involved in many gang activities. They will meet all sorts of things outside of the school system because they are not at the place where they should be formed, where they should be made, where they should be cultured. So the perfect space for them, they're out of it. So because of it, they'll be able to meet all sorts of dangers outside of the system.
Okay. Well, thank you so much for being with us. But then let's move on to the basic reason, one of the basic reasons why education is almost not succeeding in Nigeria. For example, there are countries whose educational system is working. I mean, talk of developed countries, talk of the United States, the United Kingdom, Finland, and just very close to us, Rwanda and probably Kenya. But then Nigeria seems to be falling short in a lot of things. We've talked of insecurity, we've talked of poverty and all of that. But let's talk of funding from the government. Apparently, Nigeria seems to be falling below the UNESCO standard, for in terms of the money that should be a budget, thank you, that should be allocated to education. Do you think this has direct or inverted or indirect impact on out of school children in this country?
Okay, our budget actually shows our priorities, where our priorities lie. And even as much as we're talking about the budget and the budget and the budget, are we actually seeing the effects of even the little we are portioned to education in Nigeria? We don't see it. Because if you're telling me you are dishing out trillions of naira every year to education, we should see something at least. At least, even if it's not in the whole 36 states of Nigeria, we should actually see it in some states. This would prove that something is happening somewhere, and then maybe we can pop our budgets. But we are not seeing the effect at all. It shows that our priorities, something is wrong somewhere. You just mentioned Rwanda, for example. I was looking at their system some time ago. They are doing so well. Their priorities are right. They are building a knowledge-based system, a knowledge-based economy. And this shows that they are out to not just outsourcing things to people all the time. They want their own people to be developed. They want their own people to begin to stand up to do things. Not every time we want someone outside to do something for us. I was watching a documentary where they actually have a citadel for learning, ICT. They pick students from SS3 or even lower, once they know that they are doing well in physics and chemistry and mathematics. These are the qualifications. Just do a little better. They pick you from there. The next thing they're introducing into ICT, pulling you out from that field. So by the time you're growing, you're learning coding, programming, and the rest of them. It's your choice if you want to further your career and get a BSc and the rest of them. But whichever way, you already have the foundation. So what you now do with it from there, it's your business. But the thing is just that they have actually armed you with an information. So Rwanda is actually doing, so we see that the budgets, they are dishing out money. Now they're seeing the effects. And I don't, I'll let over, let me not just, but I don't know how much Rwanda puts into education, but we can see the effects. But every day, every year in, year out, we keep mentioning millions, trillions.
1.54 trillion.
Yeah. And then we are not seeing the effect. It actually means that either we are not actually giving out the budgets, and we are just quoting figures, or something is happening to the budget.
So we really need like an accountability system.
Exactly. I think we really need accountability. But then just before we round up this session, all right, one basic thing I would like us to create a link to is the issue of out-of-school children and Nigeria's general stability. Now, do you think, as a person, the fact that children are out of school is a big reason why Nigeria, well, I don't want to say not working, but why Nigeria's success or growth or development is kind of moving like that of a snail?
Yeah.
Do you think that could be one of the reasons? Because we've highlighted that, well, children are not adults, but then, of course, children are a significant part of Nigeria's population. I mean, well, I don't talk of other parts of the world where they use children for so many things. Well, even in Nigeria, they use children for a lot of, other vices.
Yeah.
So do you think, from your perspective, that there's a link between out-of-school children and the epileptic growth of Nigeria?
Okay, Blessing. For a minute, let's just calm down a little and about the out-of-school children. Those that are in school, do they have the perfect environment to grow? Do they have the tools that are necessary? Do they have um, all the necessary facilities,
Infrastructure.
exactly, do they have it? So as we are still battling with that, we still have children that are not even in school, doubling the whole issue, doubling the entire economical
Somewhere.
exactly. So these are all the things to be thinking about. Yes, these children being out of school affects the economy because they are the future. If we have more people, yesterday I was in the school for an outreach, and then I met a guy in SS3. He's about to write his wife, and he was talking about how he wants to study cybersecurity.
Wow.
Like, wow, I was excited for him.
Yeah.
But do we have the system to actually train people that will start on par with other countries?
Well, I mean,
Yeah.
I hate to admit, but I'm not certain. I'm not certain we do have them.
Okay. So now to round up. We have mentioned most of the issues that these people face, talked about depression and everything. What are your recommendations towards, because we can't just leave the audience, thinking that that's where it stops. How then can we help in, eradicating this trauma these children already have, from maybe they were kidnapped, they came back. Most of the children that were kidnapped, like the Chibok girls, some of them came back pregnant. Most of them emotionally abused, physically abused. So what ways can we help, implement in removing the trauma?
I think at the core of the issue is this insecurity system problem in Nigeria.
Yeah.
So we must address that first. If I know that when there's an opportunity for me to go back to school, and yet still the those security issues persist, I won't go back. Sorry, there's nothing you can do about it. So at first, people have to know that they are safe.
Yeah.
They have to know that, let's forget school. My community is safe. Where I live, I can live comfortably. That's the first place where the psychological trauma and the whole thing is dealt with. Because how you deal with trauma is that you bring the person into a safe space first. If they are not brought into a safe space first, that is nothing you want to do that is going to actually help. Because if we are saying you're going to be fine, you're going to be okay, and then
help other children taking after them.
So at the basic, we have to deal with the insecurity systems. Then we should have programs, we should have initiatives that actually deal with the trauma these children go through. We should have NGOs set up some things. The government should set up infrastructures, come up with initiatives that actually address students or these people that come back from being kidnapped.
Yeah.
They should be brought into a space where they actually, whether they're pregnant or not, bring them into a space, because we're talking about someone's mindset here. We're talking about someone's mind. We don't know what they went through.
Yes.
As they're coming back with PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder. Many of them will be depressed. So many of them will be having the fear of missing out because they know that they have actually missed a lot. Maybe they will be coming back meeting friends that have actually graduated from school. Meanwhile, they were locked up somewhere for some time. Okay, take for example the Chibok girls. Many of them are not back up till now. So imagine if they come back now.
What happens?
What happens?
What happens?
So the best thing is to set up a system that helps these people, a safe space for them, where they can be addressed, therapy, psychologists, psychiatrists, all the necessary mental professionals put into place. Find them skills, they need to learn things. They need personal development. They should know that they can still make something out of life. And all this can be implemented if the governments can actually.
Thank you so much, Jennifer, for this wonderful session. One last question. Right. One last question. Nigeria is part of the UN countries who have signed up for the SDGs. I mean, Sustainable Development Goals. And of course, education is number 4 on the list. And we're hoping that by 2030, education will be available to everyone in all of the UN countries. Do you think Nigeria is going to meet up?
I was reading an article some time ago, and I stumbled upon something that the UN had an arrangement for Nigeria to have lesser out of school children by 2025.
Yeah,
So we're in 2024, and it's sad that we're actually topping the charts. So by 2030, that will be in the next 6 years.
Yeah.
Well, we'll have to keep our fingers crossed and hope that something happens in the future.
Well, thank you so much, Jennifer. It's been amazing having you on this conversation.
Right.
And I'm very happy to be here. Thank you very much, Blessing and Jennifer.
All right, now we're going to a very short break. When we come back, we'll take a look at what key players in the humanitarian and development industry are saying as regards out-of-school children. Please stay tuned. You're still watching Hude right here on the Hude Network. It's now time we take a look at what key players in the humanitarian and development industry have to say about the current menace of out-of-school children. Let's take a look. All right, the UNICEF is here saying a staggering 19 million children are out of school in Sudan as conflict rages on. Millions of children and families have been displaced. UNICEF is providing safe spaces for children to learn, play, and get in the mental health support they need. Well, you can help by, all right. Yeah, so I think I like UNICEF for so many reasons. The fact that they don't just highlight problems, but then they provide solutions.
Yeah.
But that is not the issue. The issue is that in as much as we've talked about insecurity, conflict being a cause for the high number of out-of-school children in Nigeria, Sudan is actually going through a whole lot too when it comes to that regard. As long as there's no peace, I don't think there can be progress.
Yes. Insecurity now happening. I think people feel like, okay, when there's a problem going on in a particular place, things are on hold. But then they forget that there are a lot of, there are a lot of things that happen at the corner. We're talking about bombing happening and then schools are getting destroyed. They say people are on curfew. I'm sure a lot of people will be like, I'm happy I don't get to go out. But then it means children don't get to go to school. It means that, schools are shut down, schools are being closed. And now the UNICEF is working very hard to ensure that children get the necessary education, which is what should be happening all over the world.
Well, I hope that we get to the root of these conflicts that, bewildered African nations and just get a way through. Let's move on.
Escalating violence in Haiti has forced many schools to close and disrupted education for thousands of children. UNICEF is working with the government to ensure children displaced by the crisis can continue learning by distributing school supplies and cash support to families. The same thing we've been saying is insecurity, stopping children from going to school. And it's like we need to actually work hand in hand with the government, not only because I'm sure that yes, the government owes it to us, to provide the basic amenities and also to, stop the problem going on. But then well-meaning individuals, people that are really interested in conversation in issues like this, can actually pitch in.
Honestly, the fight is for all.
Yeah.
The fight is for all, if you ask me. And well, we're doing our own quota. I think everyone should do his or their own parts, and then ensure that at least, even if it's to educate the nearest person to you, there's no need to fight. Let's stay in peace and ensure that there's development. But then one key thing I noticed from these particular comments by the UNICEF is the fact that they're providing aid, because conflict makes everyone poorer, and that's the truth.
Yeah.
And if you're hungry, like we stated earlier, and how our guest also buttressed that point, will you want to go to school? If you're hungry, will you go to school? If you don't feel safe, will you want to go to school? So these are the issues we need to get a way through. Let's take a look at one more. All right, we have here, still from the UNICEF, in quotes, I am happy I can finally go to school. I love it, and maths is my favorite subject, says 10-year-old Marwa from Syria. Marwa attended a UNICEF-supported session designed to help out-of-school children and their families understand why education matters. This seems like it just came out from where I was in my head.
Yeah.
Because look at it. They need support. They need, information. They need education, educating and enlightening on why education really matters. And regardless of every barrier, they need to push on. And if you're not educated, if you're not informed about why you should be in school or why your children should be in school, that is a problem on its own. And well, God for Mara, it's good that she'll get back to school.
Education fosters dreams. Not sending your children to school already limits them from dreaming big. I see the way Marwa is happy that, maths is her favorite subject. Who knows, she can go on to become someone really great in future. Which is why, education is really important.
That's the funny thing about children. You just don't know who they will become. I mean, the president didn't know he was going to become president today. The most influential person today didn't know. But it all starts from a dream and understanding why you should even have a dream and understanding that education can help you get to your dream. One last one, and then we call it quits today. All right, we have
10-year-old Octavia from Kenya is excited to catch up on her learning. She's one of 250,000 out-of-school children from across 16 countries whose education is back on track thanks to the support of UNICEF and the EAA Foundation. See, I'm so happy with saying things like this because it means in as much as the problem rages on, solutions still are coming. But then we cannot just limit it to just what the UNICEF is doing. Governments too, they owe it to their citizens to provide education for them.
They do owe it to their citizens to provide education, ensure that they provide basic amenities that would also support learning. Because, if you're not comfortable, you will not be interested in learning. So just, Jennifer, to round up today, tell me what you think is should be at the forefront when it comes to tackling this out-of-school children menace. What do you think?
Well, I think we need to place more priority in terms of education, look at budget allocation. And also from what our guest has mentioned, so we see that out-of-school children doesn't just stop at them not being in school. It also has emotional impact on them. And so providing this will also foster their learning, because you cannot just send someone to school, someone that has been abused, someone that was kidnapped, just say, okay, you're back, thank you for coming back, and then you send them to school. No, we need to actually place more priorities on their emotional, state of mind as well as their physical state of mind. And then the government should be held accountable for everything they do regarding education, because other countries that have it better, they did better. And so we too should also do better.
Exactly, Jennifer. Like I always say, at the forefront of solving any issue is knowing what the exact problem is. Yeah. So if we have insecurity as a major concern, if we have poverty as a major concern, if we have parent illiteracy as a major concern, we need to provide solutions targeted directly at these problems. Yeah, one of the issues also was the fact that we have inability of children to access education in their local languages. And the KARI came in handy to save the day. Let's get more solutions that will come in to save poverty, that will come in to save insecurity, and that will come in to ensure that every parent and every child is very well informed of the need to pursue education and how education can help make the world a very much better place. Thank you so much, Jennifer, for being with me today. It's been a pleasure.
It's a pleasure.
Well, thank you, viewers, for watching. This is where we call it quits on today's edition of Hude. I've been with
Jennifer Egensi.
And I am Blessing Dagin. Thank you for staying.